Yes, we're fortunate to have the experts with us this morning, Evelyn, with Commissioner Kevin Conley and Police Chief Dan Smith.
And they're going to fill us all in.
They're going to fill us in on the
Good.
recent accreditation with the CALIA program. Guys, where would you like to start?
Good morning, Jerry. We're very proud of our accreditation that we recently received. It was a long process, little over 3-year process from start to finish. We attended a conference on July 30th in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we received our accreditation through CALIA, which stands for the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. CALIA has been around since 1979. It's basically 4 groups came together and created CALIA, and that's the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum. They basically come up with a body of standards that they feel our professional agencies should adhere to and meet.
So it's kind of a quality program, a quality control or quality assurance program for the department.
That's part of it, Jerry. I think simply put, for residents who want to know what it means to them, it means increased accountability to the residents of Schererville, Indiana. Where with CALIA, we have to have a policy for everything we do within the department, and basically we have to practice what we preach. And again, simply put, that's what it means to residents. It improves service delivery, better crime prevention, and also proud to say that we're one of 2 agencies in Lake County, in addition to Munster, to earn accreditation. And in fact, Munster was down in Cincinnati as well at the conference, earning their reaccreditation.
Well, and how many of these procedures did you have to submit?
The total was probably just under a couple hundred. Basically, whatever is applicable to the agency.
Give us an example of what a procedure might be. What so people can understand.
One of the general orders that we would have would be, let's say, a pursuit policy. We would have to have all the details spelled out when they cannot engage in a pursuit. That would be one of them. Basically, the standards through CALIA, they're in 9 major areas that you have to show compliance in. That'd be role, responsibilities, and relationships, organization, management, and administration, personnel structure, personnel process, operations support, traffic operations, detainee and court-related activities, and auxiliary and technical services. So basically they come up with the standards, and then we have to have a general order in place that addresses each of those 9 areas, basically spelling out what the officers can and cannot do.
So when you say general order, that would be the same as a procedure or policy, something along those lines?
Yes.
And when you received accreditation, the CALIA people came out to the town of Schererville, inspected the department, interviewed people, and to verify that you were in fact operating in accordance with those policies?
Correct. Initially, there's an enrollment procedure, and then after that, there's what they call a self-assessment, which means we have a copy of all the standards, what they are, and then during that self-assessment period, we go through and create the general orders specifically tailored to those standards so that we can meet those. Once the self-assessment period is over, meaning once we have all the general orders in hand, once they've all been written, and once we're complying with those and meeting those, then they do what they call an on-site assessment. So we had 2 assessors that came from outside of Indiana. A deputy chief and a chief of police came from another agency, came to Schererville, and they came into the police department. They reviewed all of our proofs. They call them proofs. For each standard that we have, there has to be a separate file in place with a proof. So again, if we go back to that pursuit policy, then there would be a file labeled pursuits with those standards, and then we would have to have documentation in that file that we're following our general orders for that.
Very good. Again, you're listening to What's Happening in Schererville with Jerry Tippie and Evelyn Jones. We're talking to Schererville Police Chief Dan Smith and Schererville Police Commission President Kevin Conley, and it looks like Evelyn Jones has a question.
I do. You go and you do all of these forms and you pass all of your tests, and then at what time do all of the police officers, I mean, are they trained in each one of these? Are they given something, a special training?
Well, in certain ones, there are in particular state. Let's say the in tasers. We recently acquired tasers for the department within the last year. So one of the standards in CLIA is that we have to have yearly training in that particular tool. So with that standard, you would go to that file, and in that taser folder, we would have to show documentation that we have trained all the officers that carry the taser every year. And that's what the assessors would be looking for.
I had heard one time that if a police officer wanted to carry a taser, they have to be tasered. Is that still a standard?
No, that's not a requirement.
Oh, okay.
It's based on the individual agency. Some police departments make it mandatory if they carry a taser that they have to actually be tased.
Yeah.
We made it an option, but the first couple of classes that we put on, I believe just about every officer went ahead and accepted that. And
I know it's
Little
rough.
peer
yeah.
pressure there.
Yeah, I think the peer pressure kind of got to some of them, and they went through it. But
It's a rough thing, but you know,
Yes.
I can understand it if you're going to do something to someone to understand what you're, you know, applying to them. But then again, it's like, you know, you have a gun, you're not going to shoot, you know,
Sure.
shoot each other to see what that feels like either.
And it's
But
just
it's interesting.
it's just like same thing with the firearms. We have there's a firearm general order, and we specify in there how often throughout the year that officers have to qualify with their handgun or their issued weapons. And then when you go to that particular general order file, then there would have to be proof that the officers went through that training.
But because of this program, everything has been upped. I mean, we had the Cherville, you know, and all of your documents and everything you would have to do. But because now we're part of this program, it's up several
You're on
levels.
WJOB. What can we do for you?
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm just kind of curious on, since we have the chief of police there, what the policies are for the town of Cherville on gun laws.
Chief, I'm going to turn the specific.
I mean,
do you have something
I'm
specific?
riding my bike and I have a firearm on my hip. Does a police officer stop and check me over or what?
Oh, not necessarily. It depends. If you're referring it, obviously, if you have a gun and you're in public, you have to have a gun permit. for
Right.
that.
And is there any places in Cherville that are taboo for guns?
Well, as you know, the state recently expanded the occasions when and where you can carry a handgun. So right now, no, I don't believe there is.
I can tell you that this subject came up in a very recent meeting with the town attorney, and he is reviewing, and I don't know exactly where that's going to go, but this is something that's relatively new that is being reviewed.
And as a concerned citizen, what are you thinking of?
Well, Hammond is going to be in this lawsuit now because Hammond has this no parks policy on weapons, and I go to Hammond quite often, and now I won't go because I'm not going to get into whether or not it's legal for me to carry the gun. I'll let them wait until the court settles that matter. But somebody said Cherville had a policy for no guns in parks.
And again, we're not sure of that. That just came to light, and really, I believe that's based on the Hammond case that's currently going on. And I can't speak to the details because we did ask our attorneys to review those cases and to review our ordinances and to determine exactly where we stand on that.
If I had questions like this in the future, and this is for Bill who's calling, and I couldn't call you on WJOB, is this listed on the website? Like, are there rules out there on handguns, or I could come into the police department and say I'd like to speak to somebody on where I
Sure.
can carry a gun and where I can't carry
Sure,
a gun?
they can call into the police department, 322-5000. But in light of the new expansion of
Yeah.
where individuals can
It is
carry a
concerning.
handgun,
It's very concerning.
they should probably just refer to the
Thanks for the
statute.
call, Bill.
I mean, I do know that I have a concern because I don't know anything about drugs or anything like that. And when I heard that somebody was caught with bath salts, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got like a whole bathroom filled with different kind of bath salts. Is this illegal? And I did ask a few people, and they said, no, it's something that's totally different. So could you address that as a, as a grandmother in Cherville, how Would it be easy for like a teenager or some young kid just to get a hold of these things?
Well,
I mean, when I walk in places, people usually don't say, "I've got stuff under the counter. Are you interested?" You know,
Right.
but you know, I see younger people going in, and I'm just concerned where they would go and what they would do, just so the parents could kind of
Right.
keep an eye on it.
Well, that is a concern, something that we're looking at. It is being addressed or has been addressed through the state legislature. I know the DEA is also looking at adding that to their Schedule 1 prohibition on drugs. But they're calling it bath salts just to kind of skirt some of the FDA rules and laws. They're packaging it similar to what you would maybe get a bath salt in, but that's not what it really is. They're using it for an illicit purpose, and it's becoming somewhat of an issue in our area. And it does need to be addressed. Where to buy them at and that type of a thing? They're usually at the smaller type stores, but
Not Bath and Body.
And,
no.
and this was an issue again discussed at a recent meeting, and we've asked Chief Smith to look through town, take kind of a survey to see what's really going on in our town. Last year, when we had the spice,
The synthetic marijuana.
Yeah,
Synthetic
we had that
marijuana,
last year. We talked
uh,
about that.
we as a town we passed an ordinance so that outlawing its sale, so that our police officers could go in and take it out of our town until the state was able to convene the state legislature and pass a statewide law. And we're looking at doing possibly that same thing for the bath salts.
Well, I don't know where I heard this, and I'm probably wrong, but once you pass a law and say this is, like we were going to outlaw bath salts, then they just change one tiny little molecule or something in it and call it something different. Is there any kind of a law that they're going to address that you can't do something like that? You can't, switch this and make it something else, and it's just the same thing, only slightly
That would
different?
probably have to come through the DEA.
Through the
but you're
DEA.
correct. They do try to change the chemical composition of it just by one or two ingredients, and it changes the effect
law.
of the law.
Yeah, the law.
It's an awful thing, and we need to do what we can to stop what's going on.